Our Earth, at night, awash in a sea of lights. Its brightest beacon, the city of Hong Kong.
We found that the average brightness at this location is 1,000 times brighter than that of a natural dark sky night.
Our health is affected by light, particularly artificial light, which activates processes in the body at times of day when it should be resting. Scientists and designers are working to optimize our light sources.
Natural light is certainly the best light. It's what our bodies have attuned themselves to in the course of thousands of years of evolution.
Artificial light is spreading rapidly, and it's turning night into day.
It would be dreadful if in a few years' time we determined that across practically all of Europe we could no longer see a natural starry sky.
How many of us today can say we've seen the Milky Way with our own eyes? Hong Kong, off mainland China. With 7.5 million residents, it's one of the most densely populated spots on Earth. One of many cities around the globe that never sleeps. By night, its commercial districts are as light as day. Light represents affluence and progress. The famous skyline is a veritable light installation. It's grown increasingly in size, color, and of course, brightness. Jason Pun is an astronomer at the University of Hong Kong. For 5 years, he's documented the city's growing light levels with a dark sky meter. It measures the sky's brightness and compares the data to a naturally dark night.
We found that the average brightness at this location is 1,000 times brighter than that of a natural dark sky night. Much of the light here is for decorative reasons, for various commercial reasons, but a lot of them is wasted. Actually, these are wasted lights, going nowhere, emitting in all directions for no one to see. It's just a huge amount of energy wastage in this town.
The streets of the city's Kowloon district are incandescent. After all, no one wants to shop in the dark. Video screens and advertising with LED technology vie for consumers' attention. Together, they generate the brightness of a cloudy day. Pun regularly measures their intensity with a lux meter.
Wow, this is extremely bright. We got almost 10,000 lux. It's extremely bright. This kind of advertising sign is pretty typical in Hong Kong. Extremely bright, changing colors, flashing patterns. It's disturbing. It's middle of the night, but it's still very crowded here. But the light is, extremely bright.
But it's not just the giant billboards that dazzle in Hong Kong. Entire storefronts are ablaze in LED lighting. Pun regularly discovers new sources of light.
A lot of times when one store opens and actually starts, to turn on extremely bright light, the other stores feel that they have the pressure to turn on even brighter lights so that they can compete. And this kind of thing just snowball. And, so just get the entire streets brightly lit up.
But why is artificial light at night harmful? After all, there would be no life on Earth without light and the sun. Light allows plants to grow. Light fuels photosynthesis and creates oxygen. There would be no air without light. Light is the key time indicator in humans' 24-hour cycle. In light conditions, we are productive, focused, and active. The onset of darkness turns on a switch in our inner clock. The body grows tired. It wants to rest and regenerate. But what happens if things never get dark? Researchers from the interdisciplinary project Loss of the Night in Berlin are investigating light pollution on a worldwide scale. Increasingly sophisticated lighting technologies mean lights in cities are getting brighter and staying on longer. Biologist Franz Hölker is studying the effects with physicians, engineers, physicists, and astronomers.
We've adapted to a day-night rhythm over the course of millions of years. All of life on Earth has. We want to understand at what point artificial light at night actually amounts to light pollution. When does light start having negative effects on us, our sleep, our health, and also on animals in urban environments, such as insects, birds, and bats?
You need a bird's eye view to see the light a city throws into the sky. Physicist Christopher Kaiba has been taking aerial photographs of Berlin's lights for 5 years. He cruises into a cloudless night from an airport outside the city. Using a special camera, Kaiba photographs different light sources and evaluates each category: streetlights, illuminated buildings, industrial facilities. Sources that don't illuminate anything are categorized as ones that cause light pollution. It's Kaiba's job to locate and measure all such sources. He takes up to 5,000 images per flight. Two obvious sources of light pollution: Berlin's Tegel Airport and the area around central Alexanderplatz. Both emit intense light. The Canadian-born physicist has developed software that merges the images into a light map of the German capital. He can locate and evaluate light sources down to the exact square meter. Lit from below, Berlin's TV tower casts very little wasteful light. By contrast, lights from the neighboring hotel point skyward.
The problem with light at night is we don't use it efficiently. When we produce light where we don't need it, it amounts to environmental pollution. It also compounds high energy consumption, which causes pollution through power stations.
An analysis of the light map has shown that 30% of Berlin's street lamps are inefficient. Their light is directed into the sky rather than downward in a conical shape. Many of these lamps are located on downtown Alexanderplatz. Their purpose is to illuminate the asphalt for people walking in the pedestrian zone.
The light from these street lamps is not directed downwards to where the pedestrians need it, but rather to the side, i.e. into apartments, or skywards, so they're brightening the night sky. These types of lamps also impact our environment. They can be disorienting to insects.
Other animals profit from the light. Some spider species have learned to weave their webs in places that don't go dark. The resulting food surplus has fueled an increase in the spider population that has disrupted the balance of species. But is it only insects and their prey that are affected by the growing light pollution? We consulted experts at the Museum of Natural History in Paris to find out. The gray mouse lemur is found only in Madagascar. Its behavior in the wild has already been extensively researched. Biologist Martine Perret is studying how its natural behavior is affected by artificial light.
This small primate is nocturnal and highly light sensitive, so it's well suited for an investigation of the effects of light pollution on nocturnal mammals. Until now, studies have primarily concentrated on entire populations, larger groups of individual animals and their movements. What we haven't studied is the impact on individual animals' physiological functions, so the grey mouse lemur is an ideal subject.
For the experiment, researchers place a total of 12 animals in individual boxes. They want to find out whether artificial light alters the gray mouse lemur's behavior. They simulate the brightness of the moon's natural light of 0.3 lux and add a lamp with 50 lux of illumination. The brightness and the orange color temperature correspond to light from street lamps, most commonly found in France.
It can differentiate between day and night as soon as night represents 0 lux and day has a lux of 1. So one can imagine that a street lamp's lux of 50 or 40 represents a significant difference.
Inside the cage, artificial light simulates nighttime. In the wild, the gray mouse lemur would now increase its activity and hunt for food. But under artificial light, food intake is delayed by an hour, and feeding time is significantly shortened. A transmitter chip under its skin allows researchers to measure the primate's physiological data. The result after 14 nights of artificial light treatment. The body temperature rises and remains even higher during a normal period of daytime rest. More significantly, artificial light manipulates the gray mouse lemur's inner clock, which it needs to differentiate between seasons. Long days mean summer, short days, winter.
We were able to show that light pollution in winter leads animals to believe it is summer. They begin their reproductive phase far too early compared to what is natural in wildlife conditions. For small animals that are dependent on the seasons, reproduction at this time of year is catastrophic.
In winter, the primate wouldn't find enough food to nourish its offspring. The young animals would starve. That would threaten the population of the light-sensitive animals. And humans, what effect does man-made light have on us? The population in Hong Kong has increased 5-fold over the past 60 years. There are 2 reasons for this. Hong Kong was long exempt from China's one-child policy, and many mainland Chinese have moved to the cosmopolitan metropolis. Alongside Monaco, Hong Kong has the world's highest population density per square kilometer. For decades, Jason Pun has watched with dismay the inexorable spread of artificial light in residential areas.
Hong Kong is extremely densely populated, and it's also unique in the sense that there's a great mixture between residential and business areas. So the scary thing to think behind is that behind these bright billboards, there are people living upstairs or nearby. They are affected by the bright lights of their own building. They are affected by the bright lights across the building. They are affected by the bright lights, in the middle of the road, the big brightly lit signs. So it's hard to imagine how a person can get a nice days of rest, a nice night of rest in these buildings.
Causeway Bay is the city's main shopping district. Stores and malls with giant LED billboards are open around the clock, 7 days a week. There's often no more than 10 meters distance between glaring advertisement boards and residential apartments. Yolanda In is a local politician who moved out of Causeway Bay 2 years ago because of the nightly nuisance of artificial light.
Even I have a special tailor-made thick curtain in my apartment. Still, these kind of lights still can over in my apartment. And when I want to go to sleep, and these lights can that make me a lot easy to go to sleep. And also, I feel headache when I sitting in the living room. I turn off the lights. These kind of sparkling lights also make me feel that upset, and my headache is really gets serious when I stay in the apartment.
Many neighborhood residents have complained about the incessant glare at night. The city government responded by devising regulations to control urban lighting. But the bill was never passed into law. The measures remain recommendations.
These kind of suggestion is just suggestion. The owner of the shop, they can say no. And they lowly to obey these kind of suggestions. So you can see now, the Causeway still suffer from this kind of light pollution every day, every night, and every household.
Is excessive man-made light harmful to the human body? To date, there has been insufficient research on the topic. An interdisciplinary team of researchers in Berlin is working on finding answers. At St. Hedwig Hospital, sleep specialist Dieter Kunz is studying how artificial light affects the quality of sleep. The study's focus is the human eye. The researchers want to discover how receptors on the retina process artificial light, what type of information they send to the brain, and how that impacts sleep.
In all probability, humans have been living on this planet for at least 4 million years, and in that time primarily used their eyes to get by. And a majority of those 4 million years were spent outside, not inside houses, and not in artificial light. So we've had very, very little time to adapt to artificial light.
The experiments are based on daily life experiences. Here, the subjects brush their teeth before bed. A typical bathroom light emits a bright blue-toned light. At this time, the body should be releasing the nighttime hormone melatonin, but the bluish light stimulates alertness.
We now know that even after just a short period of 5 to 10 minutes, for example in the bathroom or in front of a tablet or laptop, melatonin is suppressed. The result is that people can't fall asleep as well, or that their subsequent sleep quality is negatively impacted.
The subjects were all healthy and under the age of 30. But exposure to artificial light was shown to delay the onset of the deep sleep phase and to prolong heightened brain activity. Further testing showed even after half an hour in bed, the subjects still hadn't released enough melatonin to find rest.
One decisive factor here is melatonin, which tells the body it's dark, and the body signals back to the brain, so the brain gets high-quality sleep. But if you turn the light on in the evening, melatonin is suppressed and the process is disrupted. That means the brain only sleeps because it's tired. And it does sleep, but it's no longer getting quality sleep. It's not getting support from the rest of the body.
Melatonin can only be produced if a person notices the difference between the light of day and the darkness of night. Kunz wanted to take the experiment further and investigate how much daylight the subjects absorbed. They were given glasses equipped with a sensor that measures the incoming light. The results surprised researchers. The subjects, most of them students, spent the greater part of their day inside dark rooms, often just several hundred lux in brightness. By comparison, outdoor brightness values even under an overcast sky are over 3,000 lux.
What's evidently key is the lack of light at the right time of day. From our studies, we can say that many of us live in biological darkness during daytime, and that is probably a significant pathogenic factor.
In a typical work environment, people spend more than 8 hours at their desk in dim light settings far from a window. That affects the inner clock. Too little daylight during the day and too much artificial light at night deprives the brain of critical external time indicators. The brain remains in a state of continuous twilight. But the data shows it's precisely the difference between bright day and dark night that is key. The more daylight subjects were exposed to in the morning, the less sleep disruptions they experienced in the evening. Engineer Oliver Stefani wants to find out how to integrate a sufficient quantity of daylight into a busy schedule. In a virtual 3D laboratory, he designs light concepts for office life. Until now, researchers have recommended a light intensity of a comparatively low 500 lux.
The recommendation today is that work environments have sufficient light for good vision, and there's a sense that that addresses all concerns. But of course, one also has to create a biological light, a light optimized to biorhythms. So we need to use daylight as the model and consider all its various characteristics.
Virtual sky can replicate these characteristics. The 34 square meter LED panel generates about 3,000 lux. Like the sun, it produces different color temperatures and it simulates clouds drifting across a blue sky. Experiments on test subjects have yielded positive results.
Virtual sky fosters a readiness to perform. The subjects felt less tired, particularly towards the end of the workday. We also saw that they felt better, and that's what it's ultimately about, making people feel good at work.
The software behind the artificial daylight sky generates a broad spectrum of colors and brightness levels, depending on what kind of work is being done beneath the virtual sky.
We know that people are more creative and cooperative when lights are on the dim side, while brighter light has the effect of promoting honesty, computing skills, and concentration. Perhaps future light systems will be optimized to suit individual requirements.
Computer screens have yet to be optimized so that their light has no undesired effects on the body. Their mostly blue-toned light activates the body's biological rhythm. In the evening, it's the wrong light at the wrong time because it suppresses the release of the nighttime hormone melatonin.
If you don't need to be concentrating fully, you should try to avoid using the computer screen too much, and above all, tone down the brightness. And you should adjust the color temperature, reduce the blue content, because we've seen that blue content, above all in OLED and LED displays, is very high. This blue content can delay falling asleep at night by up to an hour.
Software already exists to reduce the biological effect of blue light. In evening hours, the program automatically alters the screen's color temperature.
The software controls the monitor by cutting out the blue content, so that the screen adopts a very warm color temperature. It turns very orange, so that it's no longer stimulating. It's more like reading a book by candlelight.
Engineers at Germany's Fraunhofer Institute are working on new approaches to display lighting. They're seeking to reduce blue content but maintain the accustomed look of a computer screen so that photos and documents don't appear to have been dyed red. Special color components are the key. Our inner clock controls our nervous system, all our organs, and our cellular metabolism. Daily rhythm is a sensitive thing, even in healthy individuals. And the system is more sensitive and vulnerable in people suffering from disease. A unique study is underway at Berlin's Charité Hospital to investigate this phenomenon. Inside a new intensive care unit, the sun rises every morning and sets again in the evening. 15,000 LEDs simulate the natural rhythm of a day. Physician Alawi Lutz is involved in the pilot project. Through the use of special software, he can synchronize the artificial sky with the weather data for Berlin.
By simulating the sky, we're aiming to restore the patient's sense of time. Most intensive care patients who are admitted to the unit after surgery or due to severe illness quickly lose their sense of day and night.
In the past, intensive care patients were kept sedated for long periods of time. But research has shown that vital healing processes are only activated in a state of wakefulness. So it's important that the patient is not drowsy during the day. The body needs to suppress the nighttime hormone melatonin. The artificial sky can be brightened to up to 20,000 lux, the equivalent of a sunny day.
If my melatonin level is high, then I'm tired and don't feel like opening my eyes or taking part in mobilization or cognitive training. But in turn, if the melatonin sinks to a certain level or is hardly traceable in the blood, I'm more alert and can participate better. Naturally, that has a positive effect on the healing process. And that is exactly what we're aiming for here.
With the help of a tablet, patients can also control light patches on the LED sky and follow them with their eyes. That boosts concentration and brain performance. And that's important because up to 50% of older adults develop post-operative delirium, an acute decline in cognitive function and attention. Early results point to a positive effect. Patients' sleep protocols increasingly resemble those of healthy individuals. That has a knock-on effect on their well-being and treatment.
We've already observed that patients treated in these new rooms with the light sky are calmer and require less pain relievers.
The LED ceiling can also simulate the green leaves of trees. Studies have shown that a view into a virtual garden can help reduce pain. More than 7.5 billion people live on our planet. In just 15 years, that number will increase by more than 1 billion. As industrialization advances, so too does the spread of man-made light. The day will come when people will have to live and work more at night to share limited urban space. But our biorhythm isn't attuned to the artificial light of night. Physicist Christopher Kaiba from the Loss of the Night project in Berlin regularly evaluates satellite images. Giant industrial facilities are among the major light polluters in Europe. They're particularly bright in the Netherlands.
These are greenhouses at dawn, and here's a huge surface that's very bright and directed upward. If you're on the ground looking in that direction, you can see how they illuminate the sky even though it's cloudy. When light shines into the atmosphere and space, instead of onto plants, it's a waste. A better solution is to direct light not into the environment, but where it's needed, namely at the plants in the greenhouse.
So there is a direct relation between light pollution and wasted energy. Reason enough for local governments to continue the policy of swapping mercury and sodium vapor lamps with modern LED floodlights.
The big question is, will we actually save energy, or will everything become brighter? Experience over the last couple of centuries has shown every time a new, more efficient artificial light was introduced, we used more energy rather than less.
The German city of Cologne has 1 million residents who use a lot of light. One has to leave the city to understand how far that light goes. Harald Badenhagen is a systems technician and an astronomer. For 6 years, he has documented Cologne's growing light pollution from a location about 30 kilometers outside the city. Even if he sets up his camera in apparent darkness, it's not dark enough to see the stars in the natural night sky. Cologne's light is directed upward and is widely scattered in the atmosphere through dust, water particles, and air molecules. This is what creates a so-called sky glow, a massive diffuse spell of light in the sky. The natural night sky has virtually disappeared across Europe. Not everyone is bothered. On the contrary, for many, light represents security, modernity, and urban life. Landmark buildings like Cologne's cathedral are lit up all night. Sky beamers cast cones of light into the sky. Shift work is common in industrial facilities, which are illuminated all night long and consume energy around the clock. At the University of Toulouse, physicist Georges Sissi is testing the energy efficiency of bulbs in street lamps. He measures the light's color composition and analyzes which wavelengths insects and other nocturnal animals react to. With his findings, he advises local governments on the best lighting for public spaces. In his lab, he also measures the amount of light radiating from street lamps. The result is alarming. Many lamps are ineffective, radiating sideways or upward. In addition, too much energy is lost in the production of light because the technology is out of date.
Artificial light, not just in our cities, but any type of artificial light, whether it's for people, cities, or buildings, consumes 1/5 of all electric energy that mankind produces every year. That amounts to about 3,000 billion irons switched on for an hour. It's astronomical.
A more targeted use of street lighting could save France an enormous amount of energy. But first, communities would have to invest in new LED technology, and to date, that costs considerably more than regular lighting.
Here in France, we have 9 million street lamps in our cities. If we could save a couple of % of that energy in interior and exterior lighting, we could shut down 1 or 2 nuclear power plants.
Initial analyses by the Berlin project Loss of the Night show that energy could be saved in the short term if cities and shops just change the way they manage lighting. Time-lapse images show that public lighting is often not attuned to demand. Organism sensitivity to artificial light is also evident in life underwater. Rivers are complex biotopes. From source to estuary, their course can cover hundreds of kilometers, meandering through pristine nature as well as illuminated cities. Biologist Franz Hölker is investigating the effect of intense embankment lighting on fish. In his experiment, he exposes these fish for several nights to a light intensity of about 1 lux. That's only 3 times brighter than a full moon.
We determined that even very small quantities of light suffice in reducing levels of melatonin, the nighttime hormone, which informs cells in the body that it's night and it's time to rest. The difference between day and night is also no longer discernible in their rhythm.
These river bass, prevalent across Europe, are active during the day, and they are obviously unsettled by intense nighttime lighting in major urban areas.
Throughout evolution, all animal species have adapted to the day-night cycle. Now, there's this new irritant, and not all organisms are capable of adapting to it. We can safely assume there are species that will manage. There will be insects or other organisms that will adapt to an illuminated cityscape. But in cities, there will also be some species who lose out.
Around the world, engineers, biologists, physicians, and light designers are working to reduce the negative impact of artificial light on humans and animals. In Toulouse, Georges Sisi is developing new approaches to street lighting. LED lamps have the potential to spark a light revolution.
A lamp for exterior lighting has to produce white light, because that's what people like. But it also needs to be a warmer light, one whose intensity can be quickly regulated and randomly turned on and off. LED technology can do that.
LEDs are quite variable, but there are no findings on which colors insects are less attracted to, because each species reacts differently. For humans, it's clear that blue light hinders falling asleep.
A street lamp has to emit good light and interfere as little as possible with human circadian rhythm. It needs to create a pleasant atmosphere in the cityscape. The light has to stay within the natural spectrum, and it should have a long lifespan. Today, street lamps equipped with good quality LED technology can last up to 10 years.
Si elles sont bien assemblées et si elles sont de bonne qualité, peuvent vivre jusqu'à 10 ans.
Manufacturers still only provide approximate data on LED life expectancy. Researchers are conducting simulation tests to glean more information, because endurance is a key criteria for urban planners. But modern lighting concepts are about more than just bulbs, as a pilot project in the German city of Siegburg shows. 2,000 old street lamps have been refitted with energy-saving LEDs. That's cut the city's energy costs in half and reduced its carbon footprint. In addition, the city's entire street lighting system is managed by software that allows street lamps to be controlled via the internet, including on and off times, intensity, maintenance, and dimming levels. The lights are now only turned on when they're really needed. Depending on the time of year and sunset, they can be individually dimmed and adapted to the lighting needs of specific sites. Modern, intelligent lighting systems can drastically reduce energy consumption around the world. But we need to alter our expectations. In Hong Kong, that prospect raises a conflict of interests. The city's sparkling silhouette draws visitors from around the world and is a landmark in its own right. Each year sees the addition of more light installations. Jason Pun has set up 18 stations across the city to document the growing encroachment of light. Almost every sensor has detected excessive levels. His team has called for an intelligent use of lighting and is starting to see results. Street lamps along the promenade have been exchanged and no longer cast light upwards. That's cut some of the light streaming into the sky. But it's a drop in the ocean, a small measure that's invisible within Hong Kong's sea of lights. 8 o'clock marks the start of the nightly Symphony of Lights show, replete with lasers, searchlights, and LED-covered walls on 50 buildings.
Lots of tourists love these lights, but of course I wish they also appreciate the people who actually have to live within the environment, have to live close to these lights. And I'm sure if they learn a little bit more of the situation here, then they would actually not mind at all that we turn off some of these advertising lights and reduce it to a more reasonable level.
With the loss of the night, people in industrialized nations are being deprived of the experience of the natural night sky. Electric light outshines the stars. That's no longer the case in the Eifel region near Cologne. Astronomer Harold Badenhagen worked hard to bring celestial bodies back into the firmament. A public star park has been certified by the Dark Sky Association. Badenhagen managed to convince local communities to permanently cut their light emissions. The telescope offers a view of a spectacle that without light pollution would be visible everywhere in the night sky.
You can see the Milky Way, an opaque band in the night sky, with the naked eye. It consists of 200 billion stars, of which our sun is one. So we're looking at our cosmic home.
We need to give careful consideration to where and when we illuminate what, how long we illuminate it, and the color temperature of the light we use to do so.
We need light at night to work, to find our way, and for our safety. But we need to decide what kind of light to use and implement it intelligently.
I believe that we're at the dawn of a light revolution and that our findings will contribute to an improvement in health. People will function better and feel better.
It's not about turning off city lights. It's about turning them down to end light pollution and bring back the stars.
I really hope that in the future we can get the night sky back for our next generation, because the night sky and the dark sky is a common treasure of all humanities.
Because you can't see the light without darkness.